Hi and welcome to my library. My name is Jennifer and this is Book Talk. The book that we're going to be talking about in this video is by one of my new favorite authors, Lynsay Sandys, and it is called The Husband Hunt. Let the hunt begin. Lisa Madison wants a husband and she has just the candidate in mind, Robert Langley. Trouble is, the infuriating man insists on seeing her as the impish girl she once was, even as every other gentleman in London has taken notice of her womanly charms. When her beauty lands her in danger, it's Robert who comes to her rescue, only to announce his affections are not of the romantic kind. Robert saw enough sorrow in his parents' union to know he wanted nothing to do with marriage, which is exactly what he'll be trapped into if he acts on his desires for the irksome siren. And then Lisa does what Robert least expects, gives up on him. As French indifference gives way, blistering passion burns at last. But just before the pair can succumb to hard-won bliss, an enemy with unfinished business lurks, threatening to destroy them both. Now, this is at least the second book by Lynsay Sandys that I read. The first one was The Lady Pirate, and I will review that when I get back to the book. And I think she also wrote Stormy Persuasions, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to actually double-check on that. Now, I'm not sure if all of her books are of this genre and time period, but the two, possibly three that I've read are Victorian romance, set in England, and, basically just women of high quality looking for husbands and maybe finding them where they least expected. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. And I really did like this book. I actually can't remember if I picked it up at work or at Barnes & Nobles. I think I actually picked it up at work. Yeah, it's really good. I do love subtle romance books, and this is definitely a good one. Lynsay Sandys has also written a couple of other books, The Countess, The Heiress, and several others. And apparently she wrote one called, gosh, let me double check that. Yes, another one about a Highlander, so she doesn't just stick to England, she also writes about Scotland. And again, like I said, I'm not 100% sure if all her books are Victorian romance books. The two, possibly three that I've read are. I definitely recommend checking out some of her books. It was published by Avon, I believe is the name of it, A-V-O-N. And it's actually classified as historical romance, but I call it more Victorian because of the time period. It's actually really good. Lisa, the girl in the book, she's the youngest of three sisters. Her two sisters are happily married. Older sister to a lord that turned out she had actually married her husband's identical twin brother, who, I don't want to give too much away, but he wanted her for reasons of his own. It's not because she was pretty. And he was in cahoots with two other men to marry the other two sisters, Lisa and her sister Suzette, and the one who was married to the twin brother and then ended up married to the actual person that she thought she was marrying. Her name was Christine. And her husband is named Richard, and Suzette's husband is named Daniel, just so you know, in case you were wondering. And it shows how ladies were treated particularly ladies of high quality, were treated during that time period, and what they kind of went through to find a husband, possibly very different than it is now. They would go to balls and dress up nice and pretty, and they'd be escorted by their aunts or their uncles or their parents or their older siblings or in-laws or whatnot. In Lisa's case, it was in-laws because her mother, I think, passed away, and her father lived in the country. So she was staying with Christine and Richard, and they were kind of keeping an eye on her while she was looking for a husband, as were Suzette and Daniel, and Robert was too, but for different reasons, mostly because he wanted to keep her safe and because he fell in love with her. But they would get dressed up, they'd go to balls, and they would meet with gentlemen. And then the gentlemen would arrange to come to the house where they were staying, either their house or house they were renting if they lived solely in the country and came to the city for the balls, because the balls were held in the city. I don't think very many were held in the country. And then they would meet, the young lady and the young gentleman would have some time together under the watchful eye of someone else to make sure they don't do anything inappropriate. And then when the young lady made her choice, she would marry and go and live with her husband. Then of course there was, like, there would be, they would marry hopefully for the right reasons because they were in love. Then of course there were the ones who married because of scandal. Something happened and they had to marry. They got caught in maybe a compromising position, and to protect the young lady's reputation, she was married to the person she was caught with, because reputation as a virtuous woman before marriage was very important back then for the high-class ladies. They were expected to be pure when they got married, so any children they had after their wedding night, there would be no dispute that it was their husband's child. But again, this is a really good book. I've read several historical romances, not all in Victorian times. I've read some that take historical romances that take place in America, some in Scotland, all over the world. I do kind of like the Victorian English romance a little bit more, because there's more out there for whatever reason. That seems to be more the historical romance books that are out there is just the Victorian, and when I say Victorian I mean like England kind. So those are out there a lot more. You see more of those than anything else. You see quite a few from Scotland as well, not as much. And I read one that was actually an American romance that took place right before the Civil War, and I will talk about that when I get to it. When I get back to it, I actually did read it, but I read it once, and I can't exactly remember everything that happened in it to do an accurate thing. And once I do an accurate description of it, and I did read one Scottish one on my Kindle, which I will talk about, because that is probably one Kindle book that, aside from the Star Wars and the Unicorns of Valinor, if you've watched my first video, those would be the two that I would talk about. This other one would be the other one I would talk about, and possibly do a comparison once I do a video on all three of the three and compare the three and show the differences between them. So yeah, but anyways, that was The Husband Hunt. Again, it was a very good book, about 20 chapters long. It took me a while to get through it because I wasn't always reading it. It just took me, not because it didn't interest me, it actually did interest me, it's just I worked a lot of late nights, and sometimes when I get home late, I just don't feel like reading. Particularly like if I have to get up early the next morning to go back to work, because my work schedule is kind of funky. I don't have a set in stone work schedule, which is why my reading schedule is kind of erratic a little bit. And if you are following, like watching my movie talk videos, you'll notice that they're kind of funky too. I miss weeks sometimes because of that. It's just because I got a funky work schedule. It's not a set in stone work schedule. As of this point. So yeah, that was The Husband Hunt. The next romance book I hope to do, because I'm starting a new book tonight, I think it's called The Devil Something. I can't remember the actual name of it. And that'll be the next one. Probably will be April or May that I do a video for that one. And I can't say when the next video for this is going to be. It'll be when I either finish either reading the Star Wars book I'm reading, which I don't want to say what the title is, the Pegasus book I'm reading, I'm reading Kenobi, when I finish reading that, because I'm near the end of that, close, I don't know how many chapters I have left in that, or when I'm done reading, Pegasus and the Flame, because again, I'm done near the end of that, probably not Guardians of Childhood, because I'm only 4 chapters into that, so that one's going to take a little while, or possibly the next video would be a Zodiac novel, but that one's kind of a free time reading book, which means it's a little different from a work reading book or a nighttime reading book. Free time reading book means like if I have free time, I don't have any computer work to do, I'm not working, I'll pick it up and read it. And I am 13 chapters into that one, but I don't know how long it's going to take me to read that one, because that's kind of a, oh, okay, I'm just going to read that one. These other books, like this one, and the first one I did the video on, The School for Good and Evil, if you've watched that one, and then my Star Wars one, the Pegasus one, sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second, and the Guardians of Childhood, and also the Cat Who book, which if you've seen my first video, you know I will be waiting until I get back to the beginning of that series, because I'm near the end of it, and I want to start from the beginning of the series. Those are all 1 chapter a night before I go to sleep books. So it's like, yeah, I can get, if I'm religious or dedicated to making sure I read those chapter books every night, I can get through them quickly. But again, it's been, and not because I'm not interested in it, it's just because I've just been tired. I haven't been reading the Star Wars or Pegasus book as of late. It's just because trying to read 6 books and a chapter each in 6 books is a lot sometimes when you're tired. And again, like I said, I've been fighting a cold and it's just been getting to me. And then the one book that I'm not doing, other book I'm not doing a video on because I have a hard copy of it, is a workbook. And again, that's mostly I just get 15 minutes to read it, and you can't get very far in a book in 15 minutes. I mean, you can get further than you think, but not as far as you can if you just dedicate to reading a chapter. Anyways, I'm digressing. So yeah, I cannot say what my next video will be on or when it will be, but I will see you next time. Again, plan to start reading another romance novel tonight, hopefully. Depends on how I feel. And I will see you next time. Thank you for visiting my library, and have a very nice day.